The courtroom was silent except for the soft shuffling of papers and the occasional cough from the back benches. The maid's daughter stood near the wooden railing, her hands clenched tightly in front of her. She could feel her mother trembling on the other side of the room, standing before the judge whose reputation for harshness was well known in the city. Her mother had always been kind, always careful not to harm anyone. Yet here she was, accused of a crime she didn't commit. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating, and the daughter's heart pounded so loudly she feared everyone could hear it. As the judge looked down at them from his elevated seat, his face was stern, lined with years of authority and pride. He glanced at the mother and then at her daughter with an expression that was almost amusement, though it was clear it was meant to belittle. "So you are the daughter of this woman," he said in a tone that carried both mockery and disbelief. "And you think you can help your mother?" The daughter swallowed hard, trying to keep her voice steady. She had prepared herself for the worst, but nothing could have prepared her for the ridicule that followed. "Your Honor," she began, "please, she is innocent. I beg you to listen to the truth." A small laugh escaped the judge, echoing through the high ceilings of the courtroom. "Innocent? Do you really think anyone listens to the words of a maid and her poor daughter?" His voice carried through the room, sharp and cutting, making the daughter's stomach churn. She felt every eye in the courtroom on her, some filled with curiosity, others with disdain. The daughter's mother looked at her with a mixture of fear and hope, silently urging her to say something, anything, that could change the outcome. The daughter took a deep breath, trying to steady the trembling of her hands. She had always believed that words carried power, that speaking the truth, no matter how small, could make a difference. But now, facing the judge, the weight of the situation pressed down on her chest. "Your Honor," she said again, more firmly this time, "please, I know the truth. My mother did not do what she is accused of. There are witnesses who can prove it. Please, just give me a chance to show you." The judge leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. A faint smirk played across his lips. "Heal me, and I'll free your mother," he said mockingly, as though daring her to attempt the impossible. Laughter erupted from a few corners of the courtroom. The daughter's face flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment. The words stung, not because of their content, but because they exposed how powerless she seemed in that moment. But instead of retreating, she felt a spark of determination ignite within her. She would not let his mockery break her. She had faced hardships before, had lived a life where she often felt invisible, overlooked, and underestimated. And yet, she had learned resilience, patience, and quiet strength. This was not the time to falter. She straightened her back and looked the judge directly in the eyes. "If you will allow it, I will do whatever it takes to help my mother," she said calmly. The room grew quiet again, the laughter fading as the judge studied her closely. There was something in her tone, in the steadiness of her gaze, that made even the seasoned judge pause for a moment. The daughter's mother gasped softly, relief mixing with fear. She had never seen her daughter stand with such courage before. The maid's daughter had always been quiet, working behind the scenes, helping those in need without expecting recognition. But now, in this crucial moment, her quiet strength shone brighter than anyone could have imagined. The judge, intrigued more than anything, leaned forward. "And what makes you think you can do what no one else has?" he asked, his voice a mixture of curiosity and lingering doubt. The daughter's mind raced. She had spent years helping others, learning remedies and care from her mother and elders in her village. She had studied how to soothe pain, how to care for the sick, how to use knowledge and compassion to make a real difference. She knew that what she offered was not magic, but it was something she could do with dedication and care. "Because I have learned to help people in ways they often forget," she said softly, her voice firm with conviction. "I cannot promise miracles, but I will not give up. I will do everything I can to show the truth and to help my mother." The judge leaned back again, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. He had never encountered such resolve from someone so young, someone from such humble beginnings. The courtroom murmured quietly, sensing the tension that had shifted slightly. The daughter's courage had created a moment of pause, a crack in the wall of authority that had seemed unbreakable. For the first time, the judge's mockery lost some of its power. The daughter had not backed down, had not cowered, and in doing so, she had captured the attention of everyone in the room. It was as if the air itself had shifted, carrying with it the possibility of change, of justice that had been denied for too long. The daughter stepped back, allowing silence to settle over the courtroom. She knew that words alone were not enough to solve everything, but they had set something in motion. She had planted a seed of determination, a spark that could not be ignored. And as she watched the judge's expression shift from mockery to curiosity, she realized that the impossible might just be within reach. Her mother reached out a trembling hand, brushing her daughter's arm. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the soft murmurs of the courtroom. "Thank you for standing up for me." The daughter nodded, a mixture of resolve and worry in her eyes. This was only the beginning, the first step in a journey that would test everything she had learned and everything she believed in. She did not know what lay ahead, but she knew she could not turn back. As the judge called for a brief recess, the daughter used the moment to collect her thoughts. She walked quietly to a corner, her mind racing with plans, possibilities, and strategies. She thought about the people she had helped in the past, the knowledge she had gained, and the strength she had built over years of struggle. Each challenge had prepared her for this moment, even if she had never realized it. Outside the courtroom, the city carried on as usual. People moved through the streets, unaware of the small but profound drama unfolding behind the heavy doors of the courthouse. But for the maid's daughter, every moment counted. Every second was precious and every choice mattered. She had learned to move carefully, to think clearly, and to act with intention. And now, she would need every bit of her skill and courage. Returning to her mother, she whispered, "Stay strong. I will not let them take you away. I promise you I will find a way." Her mother's eyes filled with tears, a mixture of hope and fear, but she squeezed her daughter's hand tightly, holding onto the promise. The courtroom would resume, the judge would call for more statements, and the tension would rise again. But in that brief moment, the maid's daughter felt a shift within herself, a certainty that she could face whatever came next. She had been mocked, underestimated, and dismissed, but she was ready to show that courage and knowledge, even from the humblest beginnings, could challenge the impossible. After the tense courtroom encounter, the maid's daughter returned to the small home she shared with her mother. The house was modest, with peeling paint on the walls and a few worn pieces of furniture, but it was filled with warmth and memories of a life shaped by struggle and love. She sat quietly for a moment, thinking about what the judge had said, the mocking words echoing in her mind. Yet, instead of feeling defeated, she felt a sense of determination. She had always known that life would be hard, but she also knew that she carried skills, knowledge, and a heart that refused to give up. From a young age, the maid's daughter had been different from other children in the neighborhood. While others played and laughed, she spent hours helping her mother with chores, learning small remedies and healing techniques from women in the village who had been taking care of the sick for generations. She learned to notice symptoms, to calm fears, and to offer comfort. Her hands, though small and calloused from work, had a gentle touch that people trusted. She did not realize at the time how valuable these lessons would become. Her mother noticed her daughter's strength and determination even in the smallest acts. She often said, "You have a gift, even if the world does not see it yet." The daughter had taken these words to heart, but it had never felt urgent until now. Her mother's freedom, and the need to challenge injustice, made her realize that she could no longer be quiet or invisible. The next day, she returned to the courthouse, determined to find a way to help her mother. She spent hours quietly observing, listening to the lawyers, and noticing small details that others overlooked. She began to see patterns in the judge's behavior, the ways he responded to arguments, and even the subtle expressions that revealed his thoughts before he spoke. She understood that to influence him, she would need more than courage. She would need strategy, patience, and precision. While she watched, she remembered the remedies she had learned. They were not magical cures but careful methods of care and treatment that had helped people in her village when doctors had no answers. She had helped a neighbor with a fever that would not break, soothed a child who could not sleep because of pain, and supported an elderly man with aching joints. Each success had been small, but together they built her confidence. Now, facing the judge, she knew that the same principles applied. Patience, observation, and steady care could achieve what seemed impossible. She began by gathering information about the judge, discreetly asking questions and listening to stories from people who had encountered him outside the courtroom. She learned about his routines, his habits, and the stress he carried. It became clear that his health was fragile, and that he had hidden ailments that had worsened over time. Doctors had tried treatments, but nothing seemed to bring lasting relief. This knowledge was vital. It gave her an opportunity to approach him with a genuine plan, one grounded in careful observation and sincere effort. The maid's daughter spent nights preparing, practicing techniques and reviewing everything she had learned from her mother and the elders in her village. She thought about each step, how she would explain herself, and how she would offer help without causing offense. It was a delicate balance. The judge was proud, arrogant even, and any hint of disrespect could ruin her chance. Yet, she believed in the power of action over words, in results over promises. Finally, the moment came when she felt ready. She approached the judge outside the courtroom, in a quieter, private setting. Her mother's freedom and the judge's health hung in the balance. She spoke with calm assurance, explaining that she had learned ways to help, methods that could ease his suffering. The judge looked at her with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. No one from her background had ever dared to offer help before. Some had mocked him, others had pleaded, but she offered solutions grounded in skill, knowledge, and compassion. Over the next few days, she visited the judge, slowly introducing her methods. She observed his reactions, adjusted her approach, and ensured that every step was taken carefully. The judge was surprised by her competence. Each small improvement in his health shook the confidence he had in his own authority. He realized that here was a young woman, from a humble background, achieving results that even his doctors had failed to deliver. His respect for her grew, though he would not admit it aloud. Meanwhile, the daughter continued to gather evidence to prove her mother's innocence. She revisited witnesses, carefully documenting every statement, every detail that could support the truth. The judge's illness had created a unique opportunity. He had seen her abilities firsthand, and this opened doors that had previously been closed. With each passing day, she combined her skills in healing with her growing understanding of human behavior, navigating the delicate balance between justice and authority. Her efforts began to influence the courtroom indirectly. Lawyers noticed the daughter's persistence, witnesses began to speak more openly, and even the judge's staff started to respect her dedication. She had become more than a quiet figure in the background. She was someone who could change the course of events with determination and care. People began to whisper about her, amazed that a young woman from such a humble background could affect the powerful in such a profound way. At home, she kept her mother informed, carefully balancing hope and realism. "Do not worry," she told her softly. "I am doing everything I can. I will not let anyone take you away unjustly." Her mother's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded, understanding the courage and effort it took to fight in a world that was stacked against them. They shared quiet moments of hope, preparing for what would come next. As the days passed, the daughter's confidence grew alongside the small improvements in the judge's condition. She realized that her strength was not just in knowledge, but in patience and empathy. She treated the judge with care, listened attentively, and adjusted her methods based on his responses. This human connection, built on trust and sincerity, began to break through the barriers of arrogance and pride. The daughter's journey was not without challenges. There were moments of doubt, when the judge's skepticism seemed insurmountable, and moments of exhaustion when the weight of responsibility felt too heavy. Yet she persevered, fueled by love for her mother and a deep sense of justice. Each small victory, whether it was a slightly improved symptom or a new piece of evidence, strengthened her resolve. Word began to spread quietly about the young woman who had the courage and skill to confront injustice and illness simultaneously. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers offered support, amazed at her determination. She was no longer invisible. Her actions spoke louder than words, and people began to see her as a force of quiet strength, capable of achieving what seemed impossible. By the end of this part of her journey, the maid's daughter had transformed not only her own life, but also the lives of those around her. She had shown that courage, knowledge, and empathy could open doors that were once thought closed. The judge's skepticism had been replaced with cautious respect, and the courtroom atmosphere began to shift subtly in her favor. The impossible, she realized, was only impossible until someone dared to try. In the quiet moments before returning home, she reflected on everything she had learned. Life had taught her resilience, the importance of preparation, and the power of human connection. She understood that this was only the beginning of a long and challenging journey, but she felt ready. Her heart was steady, her mind sharp, and her spirit unbroken. She knew that with persistence, care, and courage, she could continue to change the outcome not just for her mother, but for everyone who had doubted her abilities. The maid's daughter prepared herself to face the next challenge. She had spent weeks observing, learning, and gathering information, and now it was time to put her plan into action. Her heart pounded with a mixture of fear and determination, but she knew that hesitation could cost her mother everything. She carried a small satchel with items she had gathered to help the judge, simple tools and remedies that required careful application and patience. Each item was placed with intention, a symbol of the careful planning she had put into this task. The judge was waiting, seated in his study, a room filled with books and documents that bore witness to a lifetime of authority. He looked at her with the same mix of skepticism and curiosity he always did. "So you are ready to begin?" he asked, his voice tinged with doubt. She nodded, meeting his gaze steadily. "Yes, Your Honor. I will do my best. Please trust me to help." Her words were quiet but firm, carrying the weight of someone who had faced hardship and emerged stronger. The first step was simple but required meticulous attention. She observed the judge's movements, noted where the pain was most severe, and applied gentle treatments with care. She spoke softly, explaining each step and ensuring he understood what she was doing. At first, the judge was stiff and resistant, unaccustomed to being treated with such patience and empathy. Yet, as the hours passed, he began to relax, sensing the genuine care behind her actions. Her efforts were not immediate miracles. The judge's condition improved slowly, each day bringing small changes that accumulated into noticeable relief. Doctors had failed to offer lasting solutions, but her methods, rooted in observation, consistency, and simple remedies, began to ease his discomfort. She reminded him to move gently, to rest properly, and to trust the process. Each improvement, no matter how small, strengthened her confidence and gradually earned his respect. During this time, she also continued to gather evidence for her mother's case. She revisited witnesses, spoke to those who had been overlooked, and documented every detail with precision. Her persistence was unwavering, and she began to notice changes in how people treated her. Witnesses spoke more openly, lawyers listened more attentively, and even the judge's staff began to acknowledge her competence. She had become more than a humble observer. She was an agent of change, quietly shifting the balance of power with determination and skill. Despite her focus, the journey was not easy. She faced moments of doubt when the judge's skepticism threatened to overshadow her efforts. Some days, progress was slow, and the pain in his body seemed to resist her attempts. She would take breaks, reflect, and adjust her methods, always learning and improving. The process demanded patience, humility, and a steady heart. Yet she persisted, driven by love for her mother and an unwavering belief in justice. The judge began to notice not just her skill, but her character. Her calmness, empathy, and dedication stood in stark contrast to the arrogance and pride he had grown accustomed to in others. He began to respect her, though he struggled to admit it openly. Each improvement in his condition was a lesson in humility, forcing him to confront the limits of his own knowledge and the value of care and patience from someone he had underestimated. In quiet moments, the maid's daughter would reflect on her journey. She remembered the lessons from her village, the wisdom shared by elders, and the countless hours spent helping the sick and vulnerable. Each memory reinforced her approach: careful observation, gentle treatment, and unwavering dedication. She realized that healing was not just about remedies. It was about understanding, patience, and human connection. The judge's recovery, though slow, was undeniable. Friends and colleagues noticed changes in his demeanor, his energy, and his ability to focus. He began to listen more, to consider evidence he had previously dismissed, and to treat others with greater respect. The maid's daughter had not only eased his physical pain but had also influenced his mind and heart. Her actions demonstrated the power of compassion and persistence, transforming the judge in ways no one had anticipated. Meanwhile, she continued to gather and organize evidence for her mother. Each witness she spoke to provided new insights, details, and support. She compiled statements, cross-referenced accounts, and prepared a thorough presentation that could not be ignored. The judge, witnessing her dedication firsthand, began to pay attention. The combination of her skill, determination, and integrity created an undeniable force that shifted the courtroom dynamic. One evening, as she prepared to leave the judge's study, he spoke quietly, almost to himself. "You have done more than I expected," he admitted. "No one from your background has ever shown this level of skill and patience." The words were not loud, but they carried weight. They marked the beginning of a transformation in his attitude, a recognition of the maid's daughter's unique abilities and character. Her mother, waiting at home, noticed the change in her daughter's demeanor as well. She returned each day with a mixture of exhaustion and quiet satisfaction, her eyes reflecting the determination that had carried her through weeks of challenge. The bond between mother and daughter grew stronger, each supporting the other through fear, hope, and relentless effort. The maid's daughter also began to notice a shift in herself. She felt a growing confidence, a deeper understanding of human nature, and a sense of purpose that transcended her immediate struggle. She realized that her actions were not just about saving her mother. They were about proving that courage, knowledge, and compassion could overcome prejudice, skepticism, and authority. As the judge's condition continued to improve, the maid's daughter prepared to present the evidence she had meticulously gathered. She knew that the moment would require precision, clarity, and courage. The judge, now more receptive, would finally see the truth not just in her words, but in the undeniable facts she had compiled. Her careful planning, skillful application of remedies, and unwavering determination had created the conditions for justice to emerge. Throughout this process, she remained humble and focused. She did not seek recognition, rewards, or praise. Her goal was singular: to save her mother and restore justice. This focus, combined with her human-centered approach, earned her respect, admiration, and a growing influence over the very people who had once dismissed her. In those days of effort and care, she learned valuable lessons about perseverance, strategy, and the subtle power of influence. She discovered that change often came slowly, requiring patience, adaptability, and empathy. She realized that even the most impossible challenges could be approached methodically, with courage and intelligence, to create meaningful results. By the end of this stage, the maid's daughter had achieved what once seemed impossible. The judge's health had improved significantly, his respect for her had grown, and she had positioned herself to finally bring justice for her mother. The journey had been grueling, demanding, and emotionally taxing, but she had proven that determination, knowledge, and compassion could overcome even the most formidable obstacles. She looked at the path ahead with renewed determination. The next steps would be critical: presenting the evidence, confronting the injustice, and ensuring her mother's freedom. Yet she felt prepared, confident, and resolute. She had faced mockery, skepticism, and doubt, and had emerged stronger, more capable, and ready to achieve what others had deemed impossible. In quiet moments before resting, she reflected on her journey. She had begun as a humble maid's daughter, underestimated and dismissed, and had grown into a figure of courage, skill, and quiet influence. She understood that her actions had consequences far beyond her immediate goals. She had begun to change the perspectives of those around her, proving that strength, intelligence, and empathy could not be measured by background or social status. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the city, the maid's daughter prepared for the next day. She knew that the most challenging moments were yet to come, but she also knew that she had the tools, the skills, and the determination to face them. Her journey, once fueled by fear and necessity, was now guided by purpose, knowledge, and the unwavering belief that the impossible could be achieved with patience, courage, and compassion. The maid's daughter felt a new wave of determination as she prepared to bring the truth to light. The judge's health had improved enough that he could focus more clearly, and she knew that this was the right moment to act. Every detail she had gathered over weeks of careful observation, listening, and recording now formed a clear picture. She had witnesses ready, evidence documented, and a plan that would leave no room for dismissal. The weight of responsibility pressed on her, but it strengthened her resolve. She began by approaching the judge quietly, with humility and respect. "Your Honor," she said, "I have gathered all the information to prove my mother's innocence. Please allow me to present it to you carefully." The judge, now more open than before, gestured for her to proceed. There was no arrogance in his expression, only cautious attention. He had seen her skill, her patience, and her unwavering dedication. Something in him had shifted. The daughter started presenting the evidence, carefully laying out each statement, each observation, and every small fact that had been overlooked in the original case. She spoke clearly, calmly, and without exaggeration, letting the facts speak for themselves. Each witness she had documented had a story that confirmed her mother's innocence, details that had been ignored because of social bias and misunderstanding. The judge listened intently, his expression changing gradually as the weight of truth became undeniable. He shifted in his chair, silent at first, then leaning forward, his eyes fixed on the daughter. This changes things," he said quietly, a note of surprise and regret in his voice. The courtroom had always been a place of authority and power, but now he faced a truth that could not be denied. The daughter's persistence had forced the light to shine on what was hidden. She continued, introducing statements from people who had been too afraid or too humble to speak before. Each testimony confirmed her mother's character, the impossibility of the alleged crime, and the inconsistencies in the accusations. The daughter made no dramatic claims. She simply presented reality as she had discovered it. Her careful, methodical approach left little room for doubt. The judge, now visibly moved, began asking questions, not with mockery, but with genuine curiosity. He wanted to understand every detail, every timeline, and every connection. The daughter answered with precision, her calm confidence showing that she had not just gathered facts, but understood their significance. For the first time, the courtroom was filled not with tension and ridicule, but with attention and clarity. Outside, the atmosphere began to shift. Lawyers, clerks, and staff who had watched the maid's daughter work began to realize the depth of her intelligence and courage. Whispers circulated about her skill, her dedication, and her ability to remain composed under pressure. The daughter, however, remained focused, undistracted by recognition. Her goal was singular, her mother's freedom. The judge called for a recess to review the evidence more carefully. During this time, the daughter spoke privately with her mother, reassuring her and preparing her for the moment when the truth would be formally acknowledged. "Stay calm, mother," she whispered. "The truth is coming. You have nothing to fear now." Her mother nodded, tears of hope mingling with lingering fear. The journey had been long, but the moment of justice was finally approaching. When the courtroom reconvened, the judge addressed the room with a seriousness that silenced all chatter. After careful review of the evidence and statements provided, "It is clear that previous assumptions were incorrect," he said. "The accused, the maid, is innocent of the charges against her." The words hung in the air, a mixture of relief, surprise, and justice. The maid's mother, standing quietly, felt her knees weaken with emotion. Her daughter's courage and persistence had changed everything. Witnesses nodded and confirmed their accounts, and even some of the lawyers who had initially doubted the daughter began to acknowledge the thoroughness of her work. The courtroom, once filled with mockery and scorn, now held an atmosphere of respect and realization. The power of truth, carefully gathered and presented, had overcome prejudice and ignorance. The judge addressed the maid's daughter directly, his tone now respectful. "You have demonstrated remarkable skill, patience, and integrity. You have not only helped your mother, but you have shown the importance of careful observation, diligence, and courage." He paused, reflecting on his own previous behavior. "I am ashamed of my earlier mockery. I see now that one's background does not determine their capability or worth." The daughter bowed her head slightly, acknowledging the words without arrogance. She had never sought praise, but recognition from someone of such authority was meaningful. More importantly, justice had been served, and her mother was finally free from the shadow of false accusation. As the courtroom emptied, people approached the daughter quietly, offering words of admiration, support, and respect. She listened politely, her thoughts focused on her mother and the journey ahead. There would be no celebration, no fanfare. She knew that freedom had been restored, but life's challenges would continue. Yet, for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Her mother embraced her, tears flowing freely. "You have saved me," she whispered. "I never could have imagined anyone so young, so humble, could achieve this." The daughter held her mother tightly, feeling the culmination of weeks of planning, effort, and unwavering faith. She had not only changed her mother's life, but had also altered the perception of those who had doubted her. The judge remained in the courtroom for a while longer, reflecting on his own role in the events. He had been challenged, humbled, and ultimately enlightened by someone he had underestimated. His health had improved, his perspective had shifted, and he recognized that power and authority were not absolute when confronted with truth, courage, and competence. The maid's daughter knew that her journey was not over. She had learned valuable lessons about perseverance, human nature, and the importance of staying calm and focused in the face of ridicule and doubt. These lessons would guide her through future challenges, strengthening her resolve and shaping her character. In the following days, she continued to support her mother, helping her adjust to life after the ordeal. She also maintained contact with some of the witnesses and supporters, quietly ensuring that their stories remained respected and their voices heard. Her careful approach to justice, rooted in observation, patience, and humility, had left a lasting impression on everyone who had witnessed it. The maid's daughter reflected on the journey that had brought them here, from the moment she had been mocked in the courtroom, to the weeks of careful preparation and quiet effort. She had faced challenges that tested every aspect of her character. She had learned that courage alone was not enough. It required skill, patience, and the ability to act thoughtfully under pressure. She had discovered that influence and respect could be earned through consistent effort and integrity, not by asserting power or seeking recognition. Her mother, now free, looked at her daughter with pride and deep gratitude. "You have shown me what strength really means," she said softly. "Not just physical strength, but the strength of mind, heart, and spirit." The maid's daughter smiled quietly, understanding that her actions had not only changed her mother's life, but had also set an example for others who faced injustice and doubt. The courtroom, once a place of mockery and fear, had been transformed. The truth had prevailed, and justice had been restored. The judge, humbled by his experience, had learned a valuable lesson about human potential and the importance of humility. Those who had doubted the maid's daughter had been forced to reconsider their assumptions, recognizing that courage, intelligence, and compassion were not bound by social status or background. As she walked home with her mother, the maid's daughter felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey had been arduous, filled with fear, uncertainty, and immense responsibility, but the outcome had proven that persistence and careful effort could overcome even the greatest obstacles. She knew that the lessons learned during this time would remain with her forever, shaping her future decisions and guiding her actions. In the quiet moments of reflection, She understood that her journey had been more than just about proving her mother's innocence. It had been about discovering her own capabilities, recognizing the power of patience and observation, and understanding the profound impact that courage and integrity could have on others. She had turned mockery into respect, skepticism into trust, and injustice into truth. The story of the maid's daughter and her mother would remain a quiet legend in the city, a reminder that even those from humble beginnings could challenge authority, overcome prejudice, and achieve the impossible through dedication, courage, and unwavering belief in justice. It was a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the enduring power of truth when guided by patience, skill, and compassion. The courtroom was quiet as the maid's daughter prepared for the final stage of her journey. Her mother stood beside her, free now from the accusations that had threatened to take everything from her. Yet both knew there was still one more hurdle: the complete recognition of the truth and the transformation of those who had once mocked and doubted them. The judge sat at his bench, his expression serious but different now. Gone was the arrogance and scorn that had filled the room weeks before. Instead, there was respect, a cautious humility, and the knowledge that he had been proven wrong in his assumptions. He had seen her abilities, her patience, and her courage, and he understood that his authority was not absolute. It could be challenged, not by force, but by truth, persistence, and integrity. The maid's daughter stepped forward, carrying nothing but her presence, her calm demeanor, and the quiet confidence of someone who had already achieved what many thought impossible. She spoke clearly, directly, and without flourish. "Your Honor, thank you for allowing me to help and to present the evidence. Today, I only ask that justice continues to be served fairly, and that all who were doubted are seen for their true worth." The judge nodded solemnly. "You have proven more than anyone could have expected. Not only has the truth been revealed, but you have shown courage, skill, and compassion. Your actions have taught all of us something valuable today." He paused, his gaze sweeping the courtroom. "I offer my sincere apology to your mother and to you, for the doubt and mockery that were directed at you. It was wrong, and I now understand the strength it takes to face such challenges from your position." Tears filled the maid's mother's eyes, and she embraced her daughter tightly. "You have saved me, not only from false accusations but from despair. I could never have imagined a young woman like you would be capable of such patience and intelligence." The courtroom slowly began to fill with whispers of admiration and surprise. Lawyers who had once been dismissive now nodded respectfully. Witnesses and clerks who had observed the daughter's actions felt a quiet sense of awe. The transformation in perception was palpable. The daughter had not sought fame or recognition, but her actions had left an undeniable impact on everyone present. Over the next hours, the judge formally reviewed all evidence again and issued the official declaration clearing the maid completely. Every person in the room witnessed the declaration of justice, and the weight of relief and triumph settled over the mother and daughter. It was not a grand ceremony, but it was profound. The slow, patient work of observation, care, and truth had triumphed over mockery, prejudice, and arrogance. The maid's daughter had proven more than just her mother's innocence. She had demonstrated the power of determination, empathy, and intelligence. She had shown that no one should be underestimated because of their background, their social status, or the opinions of others. Every witness, every lawyer, and every official who had witnessed her work now understood the value of patience, careful planning, and courage. After the official proceedings, the judge addressed the maid's daughter privately. "I have learned a lesson that I will not forget. You have challenged my assumptions, healed my understanding, and demonstrated the true meaning of integrity. I will ensure that your mother's record is cleared fully, and that your efforts are recognized appropriately." She nodded quietly, not seeking reward, but feeling the satisfaction of having done the right thing. Her journey had been long, challenging, and at times frightening, but it had brought justice, awareness, and a change in perspective that would last beyond this case. She understood that her actions had ripple effects far beyond the courtroom. The maid's daughter and her mother walked home together, side by side, their bond strengthened through the trials they had faced. Each step felt lighter, freer, filled with hope for the future. The mother could finally breathe, her daughter's courage having restored her dignity and freedom. The daughter, in turn, felt a deep sense of accomplishment, not for herself, but for the triumph of truth and justice. Days later, in their small home, the daughter reflected on the journey. She thought about the lessons she had learned, the importance of patience, observation, and empathy, the value of acting with integrity and courage, and the power of persistence in the face of mockery and doubt. She realized that her ability to remain calm, focused, and determined had been crucial in transforming not just the outcome of the case, but the hearts and minds of those who had once underestimated her. The judge's office sent a formal letter acknowledging her efforts and the importance of her actions. Although she did not seek recognition, it served as a reminder that courage and intelligence, when combined with compassion, could influence even those in positions of great authority. The letter was not a reward, but a symbol that justice, when pursued with honesty and dedication, could prevail. Neighbors and community members learned of her deeds quietly, spreading the story of the maid's daughter who had faced ridicule, challenged authority, and restored justice. They spoke of her wisdom, her calm determination, and her unwavering commitment to her mother's freedom. She became a quiet symbol of hope, showing that strength and courage could come from anyone, regardless of background. The mother, free from fear and false accusation, returned to her life with renewed energy and gratitude. She continued to support her daughter, proud of the young woman who had not only protected her but had changed the perceptions of an entire community. The bond between mother and daughter had been strengthened in ways that only such trials could create, filled with trust, respect, and love. The daughter continued to practice her skills, helping others quietly, without seeking fame. Her reputation grew naturally, rooted in her consistent compassion and competence. She understood that the true measure of her success was not recognition, but the impact she had on the lives she touched and the justice she upheld. In the quiet moments of reflection, she thought about the judge and the courtroom, and how far the journey had brought them all. Mockery and doubt had been transformed into respect and admiration. She had learned that change was possible when one acted with integrity and patience, even against authority. She realized that courage alone was not enough. It required wisdom, planning, and careful action to bring about meaningful results. As she looked to the future, the maid's daughter felt a deep sense of purpose. She had faced the impossible, and in doing so, had proven that determination, compassion, and skill could overcome fear, prejudice, and authority. She had restored her mother's freedom, changed the mindset of those who had doubted her, and left a lasting impression on her community. The impossible had been achieved, not through force or arrogance, but through quiet strength, intelligence, and an unwavering commitment to justice. Her story became a lesson for all who heard it, that even the humblest beginnings could rise to challenge injustice, that mockery could be met with patience and integrity, and that the human spirit, when guided by compassion and courage, could accomplish extraordinary things. The maid's daughter had not only saved her mother, but she had also set an example of hope, strength, and unwavering resolve that would inspire others for generations to come. And so, with her mother beside her and justice fully restored, she continued her life quietly but powerfully, carrying with her the lessons of patience, resilience, and the enduring power of truth. She knew that challenges would come again, but she had proven to herself and to the world that the impossible could be achieved with courage, knowledge, and unwavering determination.